To say that we're blown away by this progress as an organization would be a huge understatement. In close partnership with the science and technology teams at the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative, we've built transformative software tools.
For years, Mark Zuckerberg and Priscilla Chan have been emblematic of a modern power couple, a union that seamlessly blended technological ambition with philanthropic dedication. Their relationship, rooted in a shared past at Harvard and matured under the spotlight of global fame, has long been viewed as an anchor amid the relentless pace of Silicon Valley. When news broke that Priscilla Chan revealed they are going through a divorce, it sent a tremor through not just the tech industry, but across public and private circles worldwide. The announcement marked the unraveling of a personal partnership that had grown alongside one of the most influential companies in modern history. Before we start, smash the like and subscribe buttons for more updates. From their early days navigating the dormitories of Harvard to their current lives surrounded by billion-dollar decisions and philanthropic aspirations, Chan and Zuckerberg's journey has been anything but ordinary. Their union was often seen as a stabilizing force in Zuckerberg's public narrative. While he oversaw the growth of Facebook, now Meta, into a global titan, Priscilla often stayed grounded in her work as a pediatrician and as co-founder of the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative. The couple made headlines with their philanthropic pledges, committing vast portions of their wealth to medical research, education reform, and community development. Yet behind the curated images of stability, harmony, and vision, something more human and complex had been brewing. The revelation that they are in the midst of a divorce struck a chord because their marriage symbolized more than just a private relationship. It carried with it layers of expectation, symbolism, and public intrigue. In a world where the boundaries between personal and professional are increasingly blurred, the dissolution of their marriage draws attention not just for its emotional weight, but also for its broader implications. For one, their separation casts a shadow over the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative (CZI), the philanthropic organization that has been a cornerstone of their shared mission. Founded with the goal of advancing human potential and promoting equality, CZI was not merely a pet project, but a bold declaration of their joint values. Priscilla's role within the organization was not superficial. She was deeply involved in shaping its educational and scientific outreach. Her background as a physician and educator lent credibility to their aspirations. With a divorce in the works, questions now arise regarding the division of responsibilities, leadership, and vision within this massive enterprise. It's not just about who gets what, it's about whether a jointly led mission can survive when the personal bond that initiated it no longer holds. This change inevitably sends ripples through the business world. Although Priscilla Chan was never officially part of Meta's corporate machinery, she had always been an influential presence in Mark Zuckerberg's orbit. Her counsel, as acknowledged by those close to them, shaped many of the couple's strategic and philanthropic choices. As personal dynamics shift, so too might the calculus of decision-making at the highest echelons of tech and charity. While Zuckerberg remains at the helm of Meta, the question lingers: how will this personal upheaval affect his focus, his priorities, and ultimately his leadership? The public image of Zuckerberg has always been tightly managed. Often described as emotionally reserved and analytical, he has attempted to cultivate a persona that is as much about vision as it is about discipline. In contrast, Priscilla brought an air of empathy and grounded realism to their joint appearances. Their carefully orchestrated public displays, celebrations of philanthropic milestones, family photos, and reflective interviews were part of a broader narrative that portrayed them as intellectually and emotionally aligned. The disintegration of that alignment casts doubt on the authenticity of those moments and reveals the personal costs that can come with public life. Public divorces are never simple, especially not for figures of such prominence. The scrutiny is relentless. Every gesture, every appearance, and every silence is analyzed and interpreted. For Priscilla Chan, who has mostly maintained a low profile compared to her husband, stepping into the limelight through this personal disclosure is uncharacteristic and possibly a sign of deeper complexity behind the scenes. Whether this is a moment of empowerment or simply a necessity to preempt speculation, it represents a sharp turn from the privacy she has typically guarded. What makes this moment even more poignant is the timing. Meta is currently navigating a challenging landscape marked by increased competition, public skepticism about AI, and regulatory hurdles. At the same time, CZI continues to expand its scientific endeavors, funding research and partnering with academic institutions. Against this backdrop, the dissolution of a marriage might seem like a footnote, yet it's precisely this juxtaposition, of personal fragility and institutional momentum that reveals the weight of such an announcement. Their separation is not just emotional, it reverberates through the architecture of influence they've spent years constructing. There's also an unspoken reality that such a high-profile divorce sets a precedent, or at the very least reframes expectations around tech leadership. For years, the narrative around successful tech founders included a stable, intelligent partner who served both as moral compass and co-strategist. With this split, the illusion of invincibility fractures. It reminds the world that even in the corridors of extreme wealth and intellect, relationships are susceptible to the same strains and fractures that affect anyone. The demands of empire building, the constant scrutiny, and the challenge of aligning personal and professional goals can wear down even the most resilient bonds. The emotional complexity cannot be overstated. Behind the titles and achievements are two individuals who once envisioned a lifetime together. They raised a family, built homes, celebrated milestones, and grieved personal losses side by side. The severance of that bond represents more than logistical disentanglement. It is a mourning of shared dreams, of a chapter closing. It also suggests that despite appearances, there may have been long-standing issues, sacrifices, or tensions that remained hidden from public view. Observers might be tempted to draw parallels to other high-profile tech divorces, the end of Bill and Melinda Gates' marriage or Jeff Bezos and Mackenzie Scott's split. While those divorces similarly involved public assets, philanthropic initiatives, and media scrutiny, each relationship is unique in its origins and evolution. What distinguishes Zuckerberg and Chan's situation is the intensity of their shared vision and how deeply their partnership was embedded in both professional and personal realms. The Chan Zuckerberg Initiative was not just a joint venture, it was a reflection of their values as a couple. Untangling that now, without unraveling the mission, will be a delicate and potentially destabilizing task. There is also the question of children. As parents, both Zuckerberg and Chan have repeatedly emphasized the importance of family. Their social media presence, though curated, often centered on creating a nurturing environment for their daughters. A divorce inevitably alters the family dynamic, and for children growing up in such public circumstances, the implications are multifaceted. There's the personal confusion and adjustment, and there's the amplified public interest that can make privacy almost impossible. Protecting the children's emotional well-being while managing the world's curiosity is a task that no amount of wealth can simplify. Media coverage of the separation is already spiraling, with theories, timelines, and speculations multiplying by the hour. Every photo, past quote, or public appearance is now being reanalyzed under the new lens of separation. Was there a sign? Were there public clues missed by observers? This retrospective scrutiny is part of the price of fame, and both parties are undoubtedly aware of the tidal wave of attention now crashing over their personal lives. It's not merely a matter of celebrity gossip, it's about the collapse of a perceived ideal. The implications of the divorce will also echo through the philanthropic and academic institutions affiliated with CZI. Endowments, partnerships, and strategic grants are often based on long-term stability and trust. If stakeholders begin to question whether the vision behind the organization remains cohesive, it could influence decisions on future collaboration. It might necessitate a restructuring of leadership roles or even a reevaluation of mission priorities. While the organization may continue, its core identity is undeniably shaped by the personal narrative of its founders. In Silicon Valley, where perception often rivals product in terms of influence, the personal lives of tech leaders hold unexpected sway. Investors, employees, and the public watch closely not just for business decisions, but for signs of stability or turmoil in the private lives of figureheads. In this context, the divorce announcement could indirectly affect morale within Meta or among CZI's partners. The emotional equilibrium of leadership often trickles down, and any signs of distraction or distress can trigger uncertainty across an organization. On a more philosophical level, this moment invites reflection on the myth of balance. The idea that one can simultaneously lead a tech empire, manage a multi-billion-dollar philanthropic initiative, raise a family, and maintain a healthy marriage. The breakdown of this marriage challenges the very feasibility of such a life. It raises the question of what sacrifices are silently made behind the success stories, and at what point the weight becomes too much for even the most carefully constructed partnerships. The story of Zuckerberg and Chan has always been about more than just two individuals. It was about the synthesis of intellect, ambition, compassion, and duty. Their separation does not erase that legacy, but it does complicate it. It adds a layer of humanity to an otherwise structured narrative. It also reminds everyone that behind every powerful institution are individuals navigating the same emotional terrain as the rest of the world. This chapter in their lives, though painful, will no doubt lead to new evolutions, both personal and professional. But as it stands, this revelation is still raw, still unfolding. The world is watching, not just out of curiosity, but because the relationship symbolized a possibility, the fusion of personal love and global responsibility. That possibility now seems fractured, a poignant reminder that no matter how vast the reach, how deep the influence, the human heart remains vulnerable. The revelation of Mark Zuckerberg and Priscilla Chan's divorce opens a floodgate of dialogue not only about their personal lives, but also about the intricate intersections of legacy, power, and vulnerability. With the public still processing the initial shock, attention is shifting toward how this decision might shift long-standing dynamics both internally within their respective spheres and externally in the broader socio-political and philanthropic landscapes. The significance of their split is not in the drama of a high-profile separation, but in the undeniable redefinition of influence and stability that accompanied their image. Their marriage represented more than emotional companionship. It served as a framework of identity for their enterprises. This dissolution, therefore, acts almost like an organizational earthquake, not necessarily visible on the surface of public operations, but likely to generate internal tremors that will require recalibration. The Chan Zuckerberg Initiative has been built not only on resources and vision, but also on the implicit trust that their marital unity would serve as a cohesive force. When such foundational trust experiences a breach, it alters the institutional chemistry, shifting allegiances, prompting restructured oversight, and perhaps even reformulating the public messaging strategy of the initiative. The complexity of unraveling their marriage is intensified by the legally entangled nature of their philanthropic and financial undertakings. This is not a clean break between two private individuals. This is a high-stakes deconstruction of a shared empire. The legal negotiations alone are expected to be painstaking. Between the assets, personal, corporate, philanthropic, and the brand equity tied to their image as a united couple, the logistical burden of dividing what they built together is monumental. Law firms, advisors, and board members will become active participants in this deeply personal matter, adding layers of institutional formality to what is already a highly sensitive process. Their split also punctuates a cultural shift in how power couples are viewed. For years, they were seen as an exemplar of intellectual compatibility and mutual purpose. They were neither performative nor overly romanticized. They seemed deliberate, reserved, and focused. That restraint became part of their brand, conveying discipline, strategy, and a shared moral compass. The public was not privy to personal arguments or tabloid-fueled chaos. That's why the divorce feels especially jarring. It challenges the idea that a quietly functioning, goal-oriented marriage is immune to collapse. Even in the absence of scandal, dysfunction can thrive quietly enough to deceive the world, perhaps even themselves. The socioeconomic implications of their divorce are just as profound. Wealth at their level is never stagnant. It is a constantly moving force that funds innovation, influences policy, and shapes social trends. Depending on how the separation unfolds, substantial assets might be repositioned. This redistribution could result in the emergence of new independent ventures led by Priscilla Chan, or potentially, the redirection of funding that had been destined for joint causes. For those who have followed the trajectory of Chan's involvement in education and health equity, a solo path might reveal previously muted aspects of her leadership, perhaps even new initiatives that were sidelined in the context of their joint endeavors. On a psychological level, this change signals the end of a deeply entwined identity structure. For over a decade, Mark Zuckerberg was not just the architect of a digital world, he was also a husband and father operating within a tightly controlled support system. The loss of that system, especially one built on emotional continuity and shared purpose, introduces a kind of solitude that no boardroom can mitigate. For someone so perpetually immersed in global oversight, the experience of personal detachment might be foreign, even destabilizing. Leadership, especially at the scale Zuckerberg commands, relies not just on intelligence or strategic thinking, but on psychological endurance. The question of how this shift will impact his interpersonal instincts and judgment looms large. From the perspective of public relations, the couple's divorce introduces a cascade of new messaging challenges. How does one preserve the integrity of a jointly operated philanthropic empire while publicly navigating a deeply private schism? How do they simultaneously assure stakeholders of their continued commitment to existing goals while redefining their independent voices? The answers will require more than press releases. They will need strategic storytelling that balances transparency with discretion. It will necessitate the emergence of two new public personas where once there was a single coherent image. On the societal front, their divorce feeds into a growing awareness of the cost of hyper-performance. In recent years, there's been a shift in how we perceive success and its emotional toll. The Zuckerberg-Chan separation becomes part of that broader narrative. It compels a reevaluation of what success looks like when personal sacrifice is folded into the architecture of empire building. It underscores that even with unmatched resources, emotional balance is not guaranteed. In fact, the demands of influence may accelerate emotional depletion in ways that remain invisible until collapse is unavoidable. There's also a symbolic vacuum that now opens within the realm of elite philanthropy. Their joint presence always projected a unified front, one that appeared morally and intellectually rigorous. With that unity now fractured, the philanthropic world is left speculating whether future projects will be reimagined, diminished, or reinvented. Will Chan's personal priorities rise to the forefront? Will Zuckerberg invest in initiatives that reflect a more solitary lens on innovation and social responsibility? The roadmap ahead is ambiguous, but the break forces a pivot, one that might produce unexpected shifts in how resources are allocated and which causes receive amplified attention. In parallel, there's a cultural consequence to the dissolution that seeps into public consciousness. So many admired the pair not just for their intelligence and wealth, but for the illusion of stability they presented. For young professionals, entrepreneurs, and socially conscious individuals, they represented a modern archetype, a balance of ambition and heart, scale and ethics. Their breakup disorients that archetype. It suggests that perhaps equilibrium at that level is a myth, or at least far more fragile than anyone wants to admit. The rupture reveals an inner world shaped by more than love or goals. It was a domain stressed by scrutiny, ambition, and perhaps diverging visions of fulfillment. There's also an unspoken dimension involving gender dynamics in such high-profile separations. Historically, male tech moguls receive more public scrutiny over their companies than their personal conduct, while women, especially those in supportive roles, often find themselves redefined through the lens of their spouse's success. This divorce presents an opportunity for Priscilla Chan to recalibrate her public identity, not as an extension of Zuckerberg, but as a figurehead in her own right. Her academic and medical achievements, coupled with her philanthropic leadership, may find renewed and independent traction. What she chooses to do next may well be more revealing than any court filing or public statement. Furthermore, this separation casts a new light on what privacy means in a digitally saturated world. Given Zuckerberg's role in shaping platforms that thrive on personal data and social exposure, the irony of needing privacy during such a sensitive time is not lost on the public. The man who helped design a world of connectivity now faces a deeply personal transition under that very spotlight. How the couple manages the boundary between transparency and privacy during this time could also reshape public discourse around digital identity, data boundaries, and emotional autonomy. For employees at Meta and affiliates of the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative, the announcement introduces emotional and professional uncertainty, particularly those perceived as cultural stewards, often become symbols of trust and continuity. When that symbol experiences internal fracture, it can trigger shifts in morale, loyalty, and future planning. Internal memos and reassurances may soothe some of that tension, but cultural recalibration takes time. It also begs the question of succession planning and how prepared both organizations are to withstand potential instability at the top. Even beyond the world of tech and philanthropy, the story holds broader resonance. It touches on the universal challenge of reconciling personal happiness with public responsibility. It exposes the pressure points that can arise when two people, regardless of their resources, grow apart while under the magnifying glass of global expectation. It is a narrative that bridges class and status because, at its core, it is about the limits of human connection, the impermanence of shared dreams, and the unpredictability of emotional truth. From an emotional standpoint, the coming months will likely be a period of deep self-reflection for both Zuckerberg and Chan. For Zuckerberg, who has often been painted as methodical and emotionally neutral, This may prompt a reevaluation of the role personal growth plays in leadership. For Chan, whose work has always emphasized care, empathy, and community, this transition could birth a new chapter focused on healing, empowerment, and independent vision. What emerges from this deeply personal transformation may be something neither of them anticipated when they first met in a Harvard bathroom line all those years ago. If you liked this video, please give it a like and subscribe to our channel. Also, leave your comments below and tell us, what are your thoughts on their divorce? Do you think it will get messy? We want to hear from you. Thank you for watching and see you next time.